What is up, everybody? We are back with Real Estate Uncensored. This is the place for actionable ideas to attract an audience, build influence, and get more clients. We've got a great guest here today, and I'm so excited for many reasons, but mostly I'm excited because we have outnumbered Greg. It is 3 agency owners and Greg. So we're going to have some fun. Chris Kraft is back on the show today. He is an agency owner out of Atlanta. We're going to talk about content. We're going to talk about SEO. We're going to talk about how to become Googleable, what that means, how to be worth searching for, and we're going to talk about the #1 way to repurpose content, as well as all of our thoughts on kind of the latest things in content marketing, including some of the changes coming down the pipe with easy transcriptions and audio in podcasts being searchable. So we have a nice little marketing potpourri for you today. So Gene Volpe is here, Chris Kraft is here, but first, the Junior Grandmaster, I better give him his due. He's in the co-pilot seat where he so belongs. Greg, what's up today?
What up, Johnson? Yeah, man, we're going to have a blast today. We were talking with Chris off air. He is no longer, you cannot hire him for $5. I was devastated. Heart was broken. I can't take the reality of that anymore. But we were talking about what the value is that he's doing, and he's bringing in just some knowledge bombs and just some legit content for all of us dumb agents who are running around. When I say all of us dumb agents, I'm throwing me in the pot there, because most of us are not writers. We need to go out there and pound the pavement and get the leads. We'll let Chris do the writing, Gene doing the marketing, and Matt plays drums to give us good drum solos for our background on our YouTube videos. But, this is going to be some good stuff. Evil Bald Ninja.
Sure, why not?
That's my contribution to the conversation is I introduce, and then I'm playing a drum solo in the background.
Slowly just drumming away, playing like drummer boy in the background, just like that. Just anyways.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Let's bring it. So, first of all, Gene Volpe, welcome.
Yo, what up, boys? How you living?
What's up, buddy?
We're living large. That's the expected response to that, I assume. And then
there's more to it, but I won't say it.
There's more to it? Okay. Yeah. And then Chris Kraft. Chris, welcome back.
Hey, I'm thankful to be back here. You guys are so much fun. No better way to spend my Friday.
I agree.
You just became my favorite person. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone that compliments us where there's a favorite person. All right. So, Chris, tell everybody, so what do you do? What's your main focus right now?
Certainly. Chris Kraft, founder and CEO of Nao Media, a content writing, content marketing agency here in Atlanta, as you all said earlier. And my main focus is creating killer long-form content for not only agents, but people within healthcare, finance, and tech. We blog all day. We love doing it. But more than that, we love connecting the human side, the art side of content, and the science, SEO side with it, so that there's that perfect balance of content that's readable, but also that gets results.
Yeah, and that's what I want to dig into first, because I think agents are, especially as they get to a certain level, let's say they get their lead generation relatively consistent, or maybe they have a good base of referrals and repeat business, and they're looking around at their options for, okay, what's next? Like I'm solid. I've got my referrals, I got my personal network, maybe I do some events, right? I've got that down, so I have a decent base. But it's not expanding as fast as I want. So I'm looking for what my other options are. And of course, SEO is one of them. You've heard a lot about it. Agents are sold a lot on SEO programs and content writing and stuff like that, with the hope that leads just kind of fall from the sky online from people searching for like Omaha real estate. So let's talk a little bit about just what you've seen change in the last, just in the years that you've been in the game, and bring everybody up to speed on what SEO actually looks like right now. What does it take to actually rank, and what are you actually even ranking for anymore?
Sure. So the days of the geo-targeted keywords, going after those, even in small towns, those days are over. You'll be lucky to get on page 2 if you're writing about the local scene and all that. So we were just talking offline about being Googleable. Sorry, that's a mouthful. So the content, the type of content these days is the type of content that resonates already with your tribe. So those email addresses that you're collecting, those people who are behind the email addresses, how you nurture them through internal content that you share with them through your blog, through your email list, etc. And that type of content is anything that's helpful, that helps you stay top of mind while they're not in the market, but when they're coming into the market, they'll think of you. But yeah, SEO is totally different because you have to go after the keywords that are so long tail, meaning they're longer than 3 to 4 words long, that these are really micro niche keywords that you will be going for. So you're likely not going to get found on Houston real estate agent or Tampa real estate agent. So you're having to get in there real deep and write the type of content that resonates with the people you already have the attention of.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of us, we've always been told that, like, we need to, brand ourselves with a hashtag or something along those lines. Are you saying that those days are over just because there's so much white noise out there that nobody's going to find you anymore? And so,
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, finish your question.
I was just going to say, so instead of going like Bay Area real estate agent, right, for myself, I would do, and again, this is me just asking because I honestly don't know the answer to this. Would I do like Greg McDaniel Realtor or something like that, or how would you set yourself up that you could then stand out? Because there is so much noise out there right now.
So much, and I think Matt can attest to this. I like that approach a lot better. Going out and focusing, number one, on the personal brand and securing your name. And they call that branded search, securing your branded search, because if you don't, someone will vulture that and take it over. So yes, I will say the days of creating content on your website for Google to give you all this magical free organic content to draw them in, to capture them there, those days are over. The day now is to go and brand a hashtag on Instagram, go and create content on Medium, create content for the platform on Facebook, and even a little bit of medium-sized content on Twitter. That way you're treating each of those spokes as their own community that's already populated, and then you're drawing them back to your hub through your content there. That's the way to go. It's a complete reversal from the way it was 3 to 4 or 5 years ago.
So it's not take one piece of content and put it out to all the different channels, but take content and create unique content for each individual channel, speaking in the native language of that channel.
That is correct.
So Facebook, it's like, woo, keg stands, I do real estate. LinkedIn is like discussing the rates and how it's adjusting in the foreign markets. Instagram is going to be like, is this filter look perfect on me? I can make your house look this good. I mean,
link in the bio.
Yeah, link to the bio. Swipe up. And then TikTok, you're doing a silly dance. I mean, so. Right.
And Quora, you're going deep and answering a question that a community member put out there. That's the only way to do it now, because these content locations like Quora, Medium, Twitter, they're not sharing. They want everyone there. So you have to play their game and then just tastefully draw people back to your hub through a discreetly placed link after you've already added the value.
Yeah, that goes back to being Googleable, right? So owning your name, making sure that when somebody searches, let's say, Greg McDaniel Real Estate, that they don't find Greg McDaniel in Tampa and a Greg McDaniel in Cleveland. They only find Greg McDaniel in Danville, Alamo, Pleasantville, like that. Basically, you have to own your name. So one of the things that I talk about, like where this term came from, was a client of mine who, if you look her up, her podcast appearances go 10, 12, 15 pages deep into Google searches. So not only does she own her name in the sense that when you search her name, like her website is the #1 search result. Then it's like her podcast, and then a couple of like big podcast features on bigger shows like Pat Flynn. But then for the next 10, 12, 15 pages, it just page after page after page of her getting featured on other podcasts. All of those are link backs to her site, super credible, and it basically drowns out anyone that could potentially compete for getting ranked for her name, even unintentionally, right? Somebody with the same name or whatever. So, and I think there's other versions of that. I think podcast interviews are a really fun, easy way to go out and do that and own your name. That's my approach. But you could also do it sounds like, with articles. You could do it with guest posting articles.
That's correct.
I think Inman, if you're an Inman contributor, for example, if you can write and you can contribute. I mean, we know folks like Bernice that get something published in Inman every week. I think she's got over 1,000 articles over the years published. Every single one of those is a super credible link back to her site. And it sounds like that's not going away. It's the mental shift from getting away from general keywords to being out there on social, giving people a reason to search for you, and then making sure when they do search for you, they actually find you. Is that right?
That's correct. Here's my analogy. Gone are the days where you could stand outside your house and say, hey, I'm Chris, I'm Matt, I'm Greg, I'm Gene, I'm great. Everyone come to me. No, it's mimicking real life to where you get invited to a party, you have tasteful behavior when you're in someone else's house. Hey, this person is cool. I trust him. I like what they do. Maybe I'll go visit their house one day because they seem like a cool person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that makes sense. It's a little bit more indirect. So it sounds like we're in a little sliver of time where you could be super direct and you could take advantage of technology that was still new. It wasn't super human yet. It wasn't really human. It was machine-like. And people were able to take advantage of that for a while. And now we're getting to the point where online just kind of mimics what real life is like.
That's right. I think that's great.
It's a good way to look at it. That's interesting.
Patience is a virtue, right? So I'm learning that you plant the seed today, and it's taking longer and longer for that tree to grow. It doesn't matter the platform, because there's so much being fed to us that people are trying to dissect and get through all the things that they have and all the things that are presented to them to figure out what they need, and it just takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wasn't even paying attention. I was just waiting for you to finish that sentence. so impatient. I mean, Gene,
it's a shame you missed it. You could have just got markedly smarter if you had listened to that. You just
could you cut that down? Could you say that in half as many words? All right. So Chris, let's break this down to an actionable thing.
Sure.
So for the average agent, based on what, because you mentioned that your sister's a luxury agent, I think you said in Houston, right?
In Houston, correct.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's give her a shout out. And what's the website that you guys just built for her?
Yes, LaJonda McCoy, realestatewithlajonda.com. That's LaJonda.
All right. So let's break it down. So let's take what you know and what you probably tell. What would you tell your sister right now, knowing what you know? She's got a great website. And what are a couple of the things that you're telling her to do to grow her career and attract more clients online?
Through marketing. So number one, she's great in person. So taking that and bringing that online is going to be a breeze because she's a great person. But, I think with most agents, they don't have the bandwidth to go out and create custom content for each of these channels that we were just discussing a moment ago. So there is a good practice in repurposing the content. So say we bring on a client and we're creating 1,000 to 1,500 word articles. Seems long, right? But then we work with a person like Gene and taking that content and breaking it up and making it purposeful and relevant for those individual channels that we're talking about. So how will we do it 5 years ago? 5 years ago, we will write the blog article, and then we'll go to each of these channels and say, hey, I have a new article up. Here's a link. No. Now we're taking that content that we already created, carving it up, and making it ready for those specific pieces, those specific channels. So that's what I would say would do. Still focus on creating that one core piece of content at a nice frequency, whether it's 1 or 2 times a week, but do a great job in breaking that content up so that it's shareable and it works well for that specific channel.
So, Chris, question for you really quickly on this. Would you want to do themed content like 1 month or per post, or would you want to do a series? I mean, help me understand that.
I think that goes either way. I think that goes down to how you best create. I know for me, I have to be used to creating things across like disparate types of topics. So I'm all over the place because my clients are all over the place. I have some clients that love themes and they do really well with it. But I say anything that keeps you creative and keeps you going, go with that. Some people are able to write about real estate one day, and they're able to write about the hot spots around town the next day. So I don't think that really matters. Whatever state of flow you get into the fastest and the better you can stay there.
Interesting. Gene?
Yeah, and this. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say. Yeah, go ahead, Gene. I was just going to take it to you and then let your marketing brain, turn on fire. And what would you do with all this stuff?
Well, so here's I think I want to hold that off for another couple of minutes because that'll come in nicely in a little bit because I wanted to ask Chris some things about video, and how he twines in. But I wanted to piggyback off your point there. So Chris, I want you to break this down for me from Matt says the average agent, right? He uses that term, and the average agent isn't blogging. The average agent isn't on social like they need to be, right? So they don't know what that looks like. And when you hear long tail, short tail, all that stuff, that's like, wait, huh? So explain to me, because we were just like breaking news, right? We just talked about how New York just banned commissions for rentals, right? So let's say you guys produce me a 1,200 word blog, and on that, right? So like let's talk about it. I'm going to put that out to my circles. I'm a New York broker, all that good stuff. Explain to me what this physically and visually looks like that you're going to like. So in my mind, what are you doing? Taking the first paragraph and putting it on Facebook? Like, tell me what those little snippets for each individual site would look like. Does that make sense? That question?
Yes, makes a ton of sense. All right, so let's keep it really easy. For Medium, I'm taking the entire article as is and just putting it on Medium, right? The same one because. The same one that we put on our blog, I'm putting it on Medium and giving it the opportunity for their curators to read it, to level it up to their front page. Boom, you're done. Syndication point number 1, done. LinkedIn, I'm doing the exact same thing, but the only difference with LinkedIn, I'm making sure I'm going to try to tag within the article and within the comments 3 to 5 people who is relevant to. And I'm going to max out the number of hashtags they allow me to tag before I hit publish because they really care about that stuff in their new algorithm. For Facebook, I'm doing exactly what you just said. I'm taking the first paragraph or two, remixing it to make it more a summary form. And then I'm not going to link to it within the original post. I'll probably leave a link to my original article within the comments. Because Google does not, not Google, Facebook does not like to send people away from their platform. And then for Twitter, I'm creating bullet points for the points I made within the article, and I'm sharing those bullet points within the 280 some odd characters that I have space for. For Quora, I'm going to Quora to see if someone already asked a question about this new news development. And I'm remixing that blog post into a Quora answer. So.
I like it. Putting the link in the comments is brilliant. That's something we've thought about for our clients for the podcast episodes that we produce. I need to tinker around with that more with my podcast, but I can totally see Facebook squashing in the algorithm anything that sends people. And it was really obvious with YouTube, but I can see them doing it at a little bit less obvious level with basically everything, and that's something that. Yeah, it has to be dealt with. It's tough because then when you go to schedule posts, that's not good enough. You have to schedule the post, then you have to go back and add the link. You know what I'm saying?
That's
so
right.
It's like I think that's where I think Instagram is smart because they just basically came right out of the gate and said, "Yeah, we're not putting links in anything.
Nope.
Sorry, you get one link. You get one, and that's it." So. Yeah, it's tough, but I think to me that goes back to the topic of the show, which is you got to be Googleable because you're basically only going to be able to talk about what other things you do and where else they can find your content, and then they're going to have to go find it because all the platforms are not going to promote anything that links anyone outside their platform because they want to be in their ecosystem. Yeah,
that's correct.
Okay, so that makes sense. So just to break it down at a very tactical, practical level. So if you're going to repurpose content to a platform, don't put the link to the core content into the post. Put it in the comments. And then this also goes back to kind of where my thinking is shifted because, Greg, I used to give you a hard time, and even as late as I would say summer of last year, I went on another real estate podcast and basically said why every real estate agent shouldn't have a podcast. And I think to a degree that's true, but if you have a show that's based around the community where you can create one core piece of content that somebody like a Gene can come along and slice and dice and put on the various platforms and stuff like that. To me, that applies. But it's the content that you're talking about is not just strictly real estate. It's more community focused, And Chris, that seems to be where you might actually have a chance with things like keywords to rank, because you're not ranking for like Houston real estate. You're ranking for, let's say you interview somebody from a nonprofit, and you might rank for that, or
Correct.
You're interviewing someone that's putting on a 5K for charity. And when somebody Googles that charity, they find you, the real estate agent, doing the interview. So I think there's some other alternative ways that we can still catch SEO.
Oh, sure. And the mindset now is don't only apply SEO best practices to Google alone. Think of each of these channels as their own search engine.
Okay.
That's a good way of thinking about that a lot.
Are people using it that way? Like, I guess that's because even one of my internal marketing team members was asking me, like, hey, how much time, like, should I be putting more time and energy into our hashtags in the LinkedIn posts? And I'm like, I struggle with that because I don't know realistically how many people are using LinkedIn as a search function to follow certain hashtags or searching for a certain hashtag.
So I'll tell you this way, Facebook and LinkedIn, no. For Facebook, you're going to see what you see, right? For LinkedIn, your notifications determine what you pay attention to. I'm sure you've all seen it. Hey, this post is trending for hashtag SEO. This post is trending for hashtag real estate. Go in and get in on the conversation. But for Pinterest, for Twitter, and for Quora, and for Medium, those are all legit search engines. And, of course, YouTube. Those are user-generated searches where people go in there with the intent to go and find things based on certain topics.
Gotcha. Okay.
Question. Pinterest.
Oh, man. Killer. I'm telling you.
How can people use, I mean, I love to do my dream board on there, and go in there and searching out my whatever I'm looking for, right? But how are you using that? Because it's for the future. It's what you're putting in for the future, right? So
yes.
Are people searching articles in there? Because I heard in a rumor that you can post articles and write-ups in there. Am I wrong, or?
No, it's still only still images, and they're just now starting to roll out video. I haven't experimented with video just yet, but Pinterest is killer for one main reason. Your pins are viewable for a longer period of time, and yes, you can link each pin, each photo, to link back to your article, and the community is just great. But there's a specific way to do it through a tool called Tailwind. That's the only real way to engage on Pinterest because it kind of creates a tribe, a group aspect, and people who are like-minded support each other's pins, and it is just great. I'm telling you, for an organic aspect and from a paid aspect, Pinterest is just amazing. And the cost for advertising is so cheap right now. So
when
I'm
you
probably
say video,
ruining.
is it
I'm
long
probably
form
ruining
or
it right
short
now.
form? No.
Actually, I don't know. I'm ignorant on that right now because I haven't experimented with it. But I assume it will be short form. But yeah, Pinterest is just great. It's amazing.
It's interesting.
I am very interested in that because I think that's got some big legs on it.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, in fact, one of my clients has worked with someone and has trained, I guess, someone who specializes in Pinterest SEO. So it is a thing. Like, there are people who specialize in helping folks optimize for Pinterest. And yeah, my client has actually thought about going deeper into that area because it is a legit. It's a whole ecosystem where you can dominate that. Like, and it's still growing, and that's just it's a really interesting place. And Chris, it goes back to what you talked about. Like, there are certain platforms where the users are using them as search engines.
Correct.
And in that case, you can optimize things for search, as opposed to, let's say, Facebook, LinkedIn, where people just aren't even using it for that function, and they're just not going to see. Like, so there's no point in wasting time on those platforms trying to create content just to be found. So So let's quickly dip in. I just want to get a couple of quick tips on if you're going to, let's say, be active in a place like Pinterest or YouTube. Let's say both of them are good search engines. YouTube is the #2 search engine in the world. if you're going to create content specifically there, what's the down and dirty 2020, the latest, what you would consider keyword research without getting into paid tools like SEMrush and stuff like that, which I know that you do some work with. What are just some practical, tactical things agents can do to get a sense of what people are actually searching for that they could potentially create content around?
Well, for me, I would still use, if you're not using any tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush, Google suggested, like when you start to type in and search, the autocomplete. Go with that, honestly. And machine learning and AI is very real, so they're starting to learn people's tendencies really, really well, just based off search history. So the hack for that, if you're not sold that what you're putting in is being auto-completed to what other people are thinking, open up an incognito window in your browser and just play around. That way you kind of get a sense for non-biased autocomplete.
Yeah. Yep, I love it. That's how I put together the initial list years ago of what our topic ideas were for Real Estate Uncensored. That is part of how we created videos that got served up in the recommended videos alongside other big names like Tom Ferry. So a lot of people found us in the early days because we did, I would say, more of an intentional job back then of creating episodes based on the initial keyword research that I did when we first launched the show. And yeah, I mean, that's how I did it, was a combination of Google, like YouTube autocomplete, and then looking at what else came up that YouTube was recommending, because they knew that was the videos that were getting response from people. So yeah, I mean, I love it. So I've done that.
Why did we stop doing that?
Because we started focusing more on the guest, honestly. So that was back when you and I were doing full-on training episodes. And sense. So like some of our really initial, and they're still some of our most watched episodes on YouTube, are things like prospecting, what was it, what to say
luxury
to close
agents.
the deal.
Yeah,
and then luxury. Yeah, what to say to close the deal, scripts and stuff like that, and then luxury real estate, and that all came from the keyword research. But once we shifted to doing more guest episodes, then you and I just flat out training. We started shifting to more of like, hey, what does the guest want to talk about, and then let's just try to come up with the best title we could for the content. But we're going to get back to that. So Chris, this leads into the next thing I want to talk about, which is shorter episodes, right? So one of the things we're going to do on our podcast is we're going to start doing episodes where we have a guest expert show up, and we're going to do some more prep time to figure out what we're going to talk about, and then we're going to record a 10 to 15-minute episode where they give 3 really practical, tactical, actionable things that people can do, right? Because what you're seeing I think is the same thing I'm seeing, especially in the podcasting world, and this applies to videos too. Things are just getting shorter.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. So you mentioned Chris Gillibo's new podcast, right?
Yeah, like 7 minutes per episode.
7 minutes. And he's doing it how often do new episodes come out?
Oh, he's a daily.
Daily, okay. And then you were mentioning, so who's the gentleman that you mentioned that's a friend of yours that's doing he's got a really amazing idea for how he's doing this and then promoting his course through a seasonal podcast.
Yeah, brilliant guy. Brandon Gailey, the blog millionaire. Really, really sharp guy out of Houston. There's a Houston theme going on. What's going on with that?
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, he does a seasonal podcast based on articles that he writes and shares through his blog and through his email list, and he'll repurpose those articles into once again 7 to 9 minute podcasts that are based on a theme that he is hot and heavy been researching. I think his next upcoming one is on keyword research and how to do that at a high level. But then through his podcast, he always ends with a call to action to one of his courses for people who want to dig in deeper. And then once you're in his course, you get into his group, and his group is amazing. Just people learning from each other, sharing insights, and that's the new way to go. Like we said offline, that the number one way to repurpose in this coming age is definitely written to audio and to video, without a doubt.
Do you think 7 minutes? Obviously, it's a long enough time frame for people to get the content across. You know, we were talking off here about another podcaster, Lewis Howes, who I like to listen to his 5 Minute Fridays because it's short and poppy to the point. You get one point across and you're out the door, right?
Right.
Do you think at some point, and this is a question for all three of you guys, do you think at some point, if we're not already there, are we getting there, that like all content will be short form to that level? Or is there still a place for video long form?
I think there's still a place for video long form, without a doubt. I mean, we all Netflix and chill, right?
Mm-hmm. 100%.
You know? So, I think there's. Oh, go ahead, Gene.
Well, listen. If your content sucks, there's no long form, right?
It's not. Yeah, if
No, that's right.
Sucks, there's no format short enough.
Right, exactly. So I think, but it's really true. I mean, I'll sit and listen to a Joe Rogan podcast. It'll be 3.5 hours long because I'm engaged with the content, right? But if I'm not engaged with the content and I want to look at his JREs, which is his MMA recap, I'll go watch the 3-minute video on YouTube. I'm not going to spend 3 hours listening to tactical Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like, that's not what I'm into. But, so I think there's always going to be I can't – here's my thing. I'm not a short form guy. I'd like to have longer form and break it up because my attention span is so thin that if it's a 7-minute thing, I'll turn it on and not realize I totally missed it. Mm-hmm. Like it goes by so fast that I'm not engaged in any part of it. I miss it completely.
Huh. Okay.
So
that happened to me for the first time. Because I was used to Chris Gilbo having longer stuff, and then when he switched to the shorter stuff, like I was shocked when the episode ended. I'm like, whoa, what did I miss?
What happened? Did I just black out?
So that's a good
really
point.
Interesting.
You know what?
Greg, I'm killing you today, man. I'm sorry.
I know you're
sorry.
we're dance partners. You're stepping all over my toes.
Great.
True story, radio.
Man. This is great radio right now.
Well, I wanted to ask Chris. So he sort of said it there. He said the Holy Trinity, right? Which is the written, the audio, and the video. And so I kind of feel like this could go both ways. You guys know I'm a huge proponent of doing the video and then stripping the audio and transcribing it to text, right? Mm-hmm. I'm curious to hear Chris's thoughts on if he would, because there's also value to paying Chris to write me the content and then reading the content myself and ripping off my own video and then stripping the audio. Like there's multiple ways you could do it. But Chris, what are your thoughts on order of completing those three things? And then the order of importance. Like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so in a typical sense, I would say go video first and then turn your video into audio and to written through a transcription. I've only seen one person, I believe their YouTube channel is Create and Go, where they're skilled enough to write an article and turn their written article into a video. I haven't seen anyone else do that. It's almost like a unicorn tactic, right? But they're able to pull it off, and they're doing really well in their space. But yeah, I will go video first if you're able to.
So when it comes to how much time should someone allot to do this? Because I'm over here, and Matt and I and Gene, Chris, all of us put out a fuck ton of content, right? It's just creation, no matter what it is. How much? Okay, so if you're Bob from Remax, so we all hate that fucking guy. But Bob was going to start doing a podcast, Gene. What would the normal human being who is not used to recording or writing all the time, what are they looking at a time frame? 10 minutes a day, an hour a day, an hour a week? What does that look like?
Well, I'm the writer, so I'm going to pass that question to Matt.
Matt, Gene, you guys thoughts on the creation timeframes?
Yeah, I think it just depends. It depends on what your core content is. So I'll give you an example. Like from my solo episodes of the Micro Famous podcast, which I do about 1 to 2 of those a month, I tend to do exactly what you said, Chris. Like I go from article because I want to sit in a Starbucks and collect my thoughts. Because once I know exactly what I'm going to say, I can go and rip it on video, even if I don't do it word for word, and it flows way better, right? Now, that's me. I'm an introvert. I think to speak. A lot of the folks on the receiving end of this, if you're in real estate, you might be an extrovert, and you might be a speak-to-think person, right? Yep. So you might do better just by hopping on video because you don't collect your thoughts until you speak them out, and then the transcription is going to be better for you. So I do think there's an introvert-extrovert kind of difference there in what feels more comfortable. It feels more comfortable for me to collect my thoughts first, get things down on paper, then go do a video, and then by the time I get the episode done, I basically just send my notes to my writer, and they turn that into the article, and it shortcuts the writing process in more than half. It cuts out most of the writing work. So I think there's a couple of different ways to get to the same place, in other words, and it depends on who you are and what you're comfortable with. I don't think there's any particular right answer. I do want to bounce it back, Chris, to you, because you mentioned that we're seeing more like audio podcasts now. The audio is searchable by text. So now somebody can use Apple Podcasts as a search engine for more than just things like who is the host and what's the podcast name. Like now they can go search by content. I haven't heard of a lot of people using that yet. I know Apple's trying to promote it, but that would be interesting to see if Apple Podcasts and maybe even Spotify turns into a legit search engine where you could type things like lead generation for real estate.
Oh, man.
And you could find every podcast episode about that even mentions that in the text. That'd be nice.
So that's exciting for a guy like me, where my home is the blog draft, right? The body, right? So I'm throwing it back to you, Gene, Greg, Matt. So are you saying that with your posts, when you post the post and it has the podcast encapsulated within it, the body of the article, the content of the body will be searchable under this?
No. We're talking about Apple is almost live transcribing and making the audio in a podcast searchable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's new to me. That's great.
Yeah. So if you look in Apple Podcasts, it is, if I remember right, let me get it right here.
I have it up right now.
Yeah, it's the far right button. It's the search button, which is the far right, bottom right-hand corner, and it says new in Apple Podcasts, search the audio, type to find topics and people mentioned in the audio. So that's in a beta test. But yeah, so the search can, now granted Apple, I think their search is still universally terrible and is more likely to break and freeze up than it is to actually yield a search result, but hopefully that improves over time. But yeah, that part is interesting. And I'm looking here at you mentioned the Create and Go, Chris, their YouTube channel. Yep. This is a slick, really good-looking YouTube channel. There's a lot of lessons for us all on what they're doing. This looks great. I'm actually going to send this over to our internal producer and have her check us out and see if there's any tips we can rip from what they're doing. And you're saying what they're doing is kind of writing the article first and then turning those articles into videos, so they're getting double duty off of each piece of core content.
Yes. And I want to answer the question of how long it takes to do what we do. So internally, just to bring you guys behind the curtain, so we always start with an outline, and our outlines are really intricate, and we could spend 1 to 2 hours on just outlining a piece of content alone. And then we have a team of writers, and they spend anywhere from 3 to 5 hours producing content that's anywhere from 1,200 words to 2,500 words. See, that's the hard work, right? But see, the fun part is breaking it up and sharing it and seeing how all that hard labor and the seeds you plant turn into opportunities. Like, for instance, we had one article that was picked up by Medium's curators yesterday. Once Medium's curators picked it up, then the largest publication on Medium, called The Startup, invited me to be a writer there and contribute there. So you do all the hard work in the beginning, and then when you break it up and share it, that's when all the magic happens.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Very, very cool. Okay, well, let's start winding down. So, by the way, Chris, how do people get in touch with you? And then we'll finish off with a couple of last thoughts.
Yes. So always find me online through Twitter at CraftWrites, CraftWrites. That's also my Instagram handle. And you can find our websites at naomedia.co. That's naomedia.co. And Inspire First is INSPIREFIRST.com.
Cool. Gene, how do people reach out and connect with you, the almighty slicer and dicer of content?
I'm searching for Craft Rights right now on Google and Instagram. Go follow me on Instagram and slide into my DM at the Gene Volpe.
Let's go.
Let's do that. Do that.
That's right. Have a sultry late night conversation with Gene Volpe.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm going to be, for the people that are listening live, I'm going to be in Orlando on Sunday until Thursday. So hit your boy up.
What you doing in Orlando?
Agent of Excellence, speaking at Disney.
Oh, that's right. You're going to go down and do it again, buddy. Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Nice.
Thanks, man. It's a lot of fun, yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah,
maybe one year we'll all be cool enough to come hang with you down there at Agent of Excellence and wear some Mickey ears and go run around on acid in the theme park. This would be fun.
Wow, that sounds like a terrible place to run around on acid. Goodness, wow, that went dark in a hurry. Like, hey, maybe we should get together sometime and drop acid and run around Disneyland. Okay.
Good night.
So he's apparently been looking at my calendar for next week.
Apparently so.
Y'all are a mess.
It starts out with Tuesday, buy acid. Wednesday, drop acid. All right, Greg, how do people connect with you, and why would they want to?
Because I'm a lovable teddy bear. Guys, I want you to connect with me. Text me, call me. My cell, 925-915-1978. Again, 925-915-1978. Let's talk about EXP. Let's talk about what we can do to help you guys. If there's anything I can do to help you with maybe a prospecting tip or trick or a new script or something like that, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to do it. Matt, where are people going to get this new, just hot off the presses, micro famous, amazing book, which I have been reading, and I can genuinely say I truly enjoy the content in that book. It is extremely well written. Thoughts are put together. He uses small words so I can understand them. It's perfect. It's great.
Thank you. So it's going to be launched on Amazon. So if you're not connected with me already, just go to Get Micro Famous. All my links, Facebook is the main place that I hang out. I think you can also go to facebook.com/getmicrofamous. I think that's a direct link to me. Because that's the best way to keep in touch, and that way you know when things are happening, because we're going to start with a launch on Kindle where you get the Kindle version for free. We'll do the whole Amazon bestseller kind of thing that you see going on, so you'll be able to get it free. And then obviously the paperback version, which I'm just launching with a paperback because I like them better. So we're launching with a paperback version probably the week after that. So all this will go down over the next, I would say, 4 weeks. So just connect up with me. That way you see the announcements and stuff like that. All right, so let's finish up with this. So we talked about like just attention spans are going down, and we want to make sure that we are creating core content around stuff that people actually care about. So Chris, getting back to the example you gave with your sister in Houston, what type of content would you recommend that she creates, knowing that people, they don't necessarily care so much about real estate content? And if you have these content creation skills, you don't want to kind of spin your wheels and waste your time creating content that people ultimately don't care about. So what are some of the things that you would tell someone in her position? What type of content would you encourage her to create? What topics would you encourage her to cover?
So she's branding herself as the hand-holding real estate agent. So a lot of times I found with agents, like they're on to the next deal. So that internal high-value content that I'll have them create is, how can you continue to help me through the content after I've bought my new home? So staying top of mind and create content that's shareable within communities. So that's what I would suggest. Creating your tribe like people who you truly care about, and not creating the type of content that we used to focus on several years ago that's only about attracting new people. So love the people who you have.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I like that. Love the people you have. Quit focusing so much on the people that are out there that you don't know. I like it, especially for real estate. And that works very well with my whole point of view with Micro Famous. Like I think Zach Hammer, who's been on the show before, put it best, which is like, for an agent, the goal is just to be Tom Cruise famous to the people in your database, especially like your referral sources, your repeat clients, your friends and relatives, your sphere of influence. Yeah, you just want to be Tom Cruise famous to them. So yeah, create content that they care about. I love it. Chris, this has been awesome. Unbelievable tactics. You guys can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the usual places where you get only the finest podcasts. Let's see. What should we pick, Greg, for a color for today?
I am gonna go with jet black.
Jet black. Interesting. In honor of the hat that you're wearing.
Yes.
The stripe on my shirt.
Yes.
I guess, 2 out of the 4 members of this podcast are currently wearing a black shirt. So sure, let's go with that.
And the color of that piece of coal you call a heart. That is what we're going with. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for watching and hanging out with us. We truly appreciate it. We love you. Chris, you're a legend. True knowledge. You are doing a massive service for all of us real estate agents out there and all of us, salespeople who do not have the brain that you possess. So thank you very much. Gene, you're amazing. Matt, you're a legend. We love every one of you guys. Until next time, peace out, ninjas. We're gone.